Okay, bed mass, adding and subtracting on the number line. So we have a number line, we have 0 in the center, we have positive directions in the right, and we have negative directions in the left. Numbers to the right are bigger and numbers to the left are smaller. So let's take a look at something nice and simple like 2 minus 4. Now 2 take away 4, well, that's a new concept. We haven't went negative in elementary school. Maybe you have. 2 minus 4, what does that mean? Well, it means 2 take away 4. Well, you can't take away 4 from 2, but you can go into negative numbers. So the way we're going to do 2 minus 4, as you can see in the notes, we're going to start with the first number. The first number is 2. I'm going to circle that number on the number line. We're starting at 2. The first number is where we start. Now, positive is to the right and minus is to the left. So if I have 2 minus 4, it means I'm going minus to the left. So I'm going to the left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 with an arrow tip and a closed dot where I stand. Now, I am at -2, therefore the answer is simply -2, and I can circle that. I could check with a calculator. 2 minus 4 equals -2. So, again, negative is to the left. I'm just going to write that off to the right. Negative minus VE, a great way to shorten the word negative, equals left. And the more often you write little tiny English sentence notes like that off to the right, and then eventually we only study those things. So that is minus. Again, something very simple. Let's go for 2 plus 3. Now, I have the number line above, and I could have just pasted another pretty one in, but I'm just going to show you a little bit of how to do it in my head. So obviously you can look at the notes, but I'm just going to start by drawing a number line, not really too far, arrow tips on both sides. I'm just going to put 0 in the center, and then I'm going to mark 1 and 2 where I start. My starting point, 2, the first number. So I'm going to again put an open dot where I start. Now I'm using graph paper. I would recommend to use graph paper all the time. It's going to make a lot of your math a lot simpler. So again, above we learned minus was to the left. Well, we know that positive is to the right. R-I-G-H-T. And a box around that. And then I'm going to go to the right because it's positive. 2 plus 3. Plus 3 to the right. So rounded arrow 1, 2, 3. Now notice I went outside of my number line. I don't care. I'm just going to extend my number line a tad. I'm going to put a closed dot there. Now, you could write all the numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and notice that you get to 5, or you could have just skipped that middle part and didn't write those in between numbers. Using graph paper helps a lot. So we can count that out again. 2 plus 3 plus 1, 2, 3 equals 5. So in the question, I'm going to say equals 5. I'm going to circle my answer. I'm going to check it on the calculator just because I can. 2 plus 3 equals 5. So anyway, that's good. So positive, like we just did, to the right, obviously. Negative to the left, obviously. So now let's take a look at a bunch of different combinations of 2 signs side by side. So if you want to look at the notes quickly, feel free. I'm going to be doing these questions here. So 5 plus open bracket positive 2. Now what are those brackets for? Well, we'll get to those later, but for the moment, 5 plus positive 2, I'm just going to rewrite it. So the question might have just said 5 plus positive 2 with 2 positives side by side. These are 2 identical statements. Those brackets above are unnecessary, but you might see them for some reason, and you might not need to know what to do with them. So if you do see that stuff above, you can just literally scribble out those brackets instead of rewriting it. Now we have 2 positive signs side by side. Anytime we have 2 of the same side, 2 signs side by side. We want to circle those two signs, and we want to think. We want to use the rule. So the rule is written in your notes. I'm going to give you the rule right now as well. The rule is same plus. Now, we're not going to use that rule all the time. It doesn't work 100% of the time. It works when we have two signs that are side by side. For example, I'm going to do the example at the bottom of the page. The most important example that I love for students to basically memorize is at the bottom of the page, minus 2 equals. Well, what is minus 2 minus 2? Well, again, if we look at the number line above, when we start at -2, when we go to the left 2, we get to be -4. I'm going to write the correct answer. Not 4. We can't just make up some rule where we do two signs side by side like this, two negatives that are close to side by side, but they're not. We can't just make up some rule and say, oh, two negatives, same plus. He told me that two negatives were same plus. No. Adding and subtracting, we use the number line as we talked about above, and now we're talking about two signs that are side by side, and we can use this rule same plus. In the next set of notes, I'm not exactly sure when, soon, we'll see that rule again when multiplying and dividing. We can use the rule same plus and again different minus in the notes. We'll go through this slowly, but just don't confuse rules and overlap rules. These rules are very, very simple. And we want to make sure that you understand the rules. So again, at the bottom of the page, I'm going to put a box around it. Minus 2 equals -4 on the number line, not 4. So back up to the question that we were working on, 5 plus +2. We have two of the same sign side by side. Therefore, we can say same plus. We have two of the same signs, two positive signs. They're the same sign. So don't always put the arrow below. I'm going to, but those two negatives turn into a positive. Then I'm going to do what we call carry everything else down. Everything that we haven't touched. We haven't touched the 5, and we haven't touched the 2. And 5 plus 2 equals 7. Notice I went to the right there with my answer. Notice I went down the page. In my notes, we're going to be going down the page and to the right all sorts of times. But in a question like this, when we have two signs side by side, it's going to be a lot prettier if we go down the page. The 5 doesn't move, the 2 doesn't move. We just see what happens to the signs. Okay, so I hope you're writing a little bit smaller than I am as the notes are laid out, and we're going to continue. So let's do 7 minus open bracket -4. Now, I'm going to again write the same question, 7 minus -4. These are the same questions. Now, the brackets above aren't unnecessary, so we don't scribble them out. Technically, you would be multiplying this negative by this negative either way. But we're going to use the rule that we just learned, same plus. We're going to circle the two signs side by side, either in this case or the one above. And we're going to use the rule same plus, two of the same signs. I'm going to arrow below. You're not going to do that all the time. Two negatives, same plus, positive. Carry everything else down. 7 plus 4 equals 11. Now check it on your calculator. 7 minus open bracket -4 close bracket equals 11. Check mark. I should have done that above. Or to the left, excuse me. 5 plus open bracket +2 close bracket equals 7. Now keep in mind, calculators do different things. You have to make sure you understand exactly how your calculator works and make sure you know the algebraic work even better. Okay, so continuing along. 10 plus open bracket -3 close bracket. Now, we have two signs side by side. This question can also be written 10 plus -3. But again, we don't scribble out those brackets because technically we would be taking this positive and multiplying it by that negative. But wow, okay, we have two signs side by side again. I'm going to circle them, put the arrow below. Now, what do two different signs become? So we just used the rule same plus twice. Now, we're going to use the rule. I'm going to write it out. It's in your notes. different minus. Spelt out pretty in your notes. So two different signs. We have two different signs side by side. If you have two different signs side by side, it becomes a negative. So minus. And that's where we say different minus. So I'm going to carry everything else down. We have 10 and a 3. 10 minus 3 is 7. Circle my answer. Type into the calculator, 10 plus open bracket, negative 3 close bracket equals 7. Check mark. I am running into some space issues. Again, I hope you are writing smaller than I am barely. But notice, every single time I do any of my videos, I'm going to make it look exactly like the notes. So you're never wondering where you are. You can quickly look and go, oh, that's pretty, and then go back. So print off the notes and then watch the videos on your computer or your phone. So different minus. Let's check out one more example. Negative 2, ooh, making it crazy, plus open bracket, negative 3 close bracket. So again, I'm going to write that question in exactly the same form without those brackets. Negative 2 plus negative 3. Now again, we're taking the positive on the outside and multiplying it by the negative on the inside. Now again, I'm going to circle my two sides that I have side by side. I have two different signs. I'm going to use the rule that we just learned, different minus. Put an arrow below. Don't do that in the future. Plus and a minus make a minus. Now I'm going to carry everything else down. So the negative 2 in front I have not touched yet. Negative 2 minus 3. Now what does that equal? Well, negative 2 minus 3. I'm going to go back up to the number line. I'm going to start at my first number, negative 2, and then I'm going to go to the left 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to get to negative 5. Circle my answer, check it on the calculator, check mark. So we just learned that we are going to be adding and subtracting with the number line. I highly suggest when you're doing these problems, just draw one perfect number line at the top, maybe farther than positive and negative 5 in both directions, and then use it on every single question that you're going to do in the future. So that's the number line. We're going to be adding and subtracting on the number line, and then we have a new rule. If we have two signs side by side, if they're the same signs, it becomes a positive, same plus. And if we have two different signs, we're going to use the rule different minus. Notice all these English sentences that I'm saying are in the notes. I will read them from the notes. If you have two of the same sign side by side, it becomes a positive sign, the rule same plus. If you have two different signs side by side, it becomes negative, the rule different minus. And again, at the bottom of the page in big blue, big blue, negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4, not 4. Don't get confused with the rules. Because when we get to multiplying and dividing, we're using the rules same plus and different minus. Again,